Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Gravitas ExpertSpeak. Today, I'm going to be talking to our guest speaker on the topic of how to lead as an introverted leader. Now, sometime back, I came across this quote by John Nesbitt, and he said that anytime a high tech intervention is introduced into the society, there is a need for a counterbalancing high touch intervention. Otherwise, the technology gets rejected. And we have seen that in the past couple of years of how, depending a lot on technology for working remotely, there has been a trend where initial part of this pandemic, a lot of organizations reported that the engagement levels had gone up surprisingly. And the reason cited was that the leaders were taking an extra effort to connect with their remote working employees. So going to once again, prove John Nisbet's point that is important for us to do that. So the focus turns again towards effective leadership. Uh, Unfortunately, historically, we have seen that good leadership skills have been associated with extrovertedness. And with that kind of a bias, cultural bias, and with our organizations being designed more conducive to the extroverted leaders, the real impact, the real strength of introverted leaders gets unnoticed and their impact gets unrecognized in a workplace like that. So, what is it that we can do about it? Today, I'm going to talk to Priya Venkatesan on this topic of how can introverted leaders uh, become more effective in their leading styles. What are the institutions? What is the institutions can do, and at an individual level, what can be done? Um, a little bit about Priya, as she's an old friend, also an ICF certified, um, sorry, professional certified coach, self-professed introvert. And in her words, she says that I believe that, and I read from her blog, I believe that leadership is about creating new realities for oneself and the people around us. And that requires the courage to let go of the known and move towards the unknown by overcoming fear, uncertainty, and doubt. My purpose is to help you, the leaders, make this journey. My joy comes from seeing you experience your own significance. So I thought that she will be the right person for us to talk about this subject of introvertedness. Welcome to this talk, Priya.
Good
Thank you for.
morning, Rajiv. Happy to be here again.
All right, great, wonderful. So let me start by asking you, how do you define introvertedness? Because I think there's a lot of misconception about, and people tend to, mislabel themselves as introvertedness. So let's get the record straight. What is it that you think is introvertedness?
Okay, so an introvert is somebody whose energy is high when they are alone. And when they are in the company of people, it is draining their battery. Basically, the energy that they experience is different in the company of people and when they are alone. And they need less stimulation. Lot of stimulation overwhelms them because they pay attention to a lot of things that most people miss.
Right,
Right, so there's overstimulation and hence they need that quiet time to kind of charge their batteries, but
right,
it's just a preference, it's not a problem.
right.
I think that is where we make the biggest mistake in branding somebody as an introvert, and that's something wrong. It's not wrong, it's just that that's the way you charge your battery, right? So the iPhone battery charges differently from an Android battery, and that's about it.
Absolutely. And it doesn't help the fact that historically, even psychology literature, it has branded introvertedness as broken people. And that there are a lot of interventions which were suggested and recommended for people to come out of their introvertedness. And
Yes.
inferiority complex was, I think, that was a label which came out from that. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about what are some of the other characteristics or traits that people tend to mislabel as introvertedness. So what I mean is what introvertedness is not, which people tend to say, oh, I'm an introvert,
Yeah.
or this person.
Introverts don't hate people, they in fact love people. And one of the reasons for the choice of my profession is that I basically really love people, even though I charge my battery differently. Introverts are not really shy people. That means they're not somebody who struggle to express what they feel. But
Right.
the number of words, or the words that they use to express themselves, is fairly less
Mm.
compared to how an extrovert would be, talking for hours. So the strength for an introvert is listening and
Right.
not talking.
Mm.
So they listen a lot, reflect on what they heard, and then they voice their opinion. So there is a slight lag with which they speak, but they're not always very shy people. And that's some misconception that everybody has. They are shy, they don't speak openly. It's not true. They're not shy, but they reflect a lot before saying something.
Right.
That's one misconception that I see. They
Mm.
can't lead well, they can't influence people. That is one thing that I have observed in my professional life, in terms of when I was leading large teams.
Mm.
The default assumption is you have to talk a lot to influence people. Right, so it's far from the truth. Maybe
Very,
somebody can be charismatic by talking a lot,
yes,
but they need
exactly.
not be great and wonderful leaders just by talking, right? So that's one another that I've come across.
Right. In fact, I think I totally, kind of endorse that fact. I myself am an introvert. I mean, I identified myself as an introvert, and
Yeah,
the reason I will probably talk if we have some more time. But the fact
yeah,
is that I'm taking these, kind of notes from Susan Cain's book,
yes,
Quiet.
quite,
And I think
yeah,
she's a poster child of introverts. The book
yes,
Quiet is the power of introverts that she talks about, and she says that people uh, mislabel themselves the shyness as something for introverts. It's not necessary, and she quotes a fantastic examples of some of the best leaders globally. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi was an introvert. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, all these people who were influencers in their own sense, and they changed the course of history. They were
yeah,
introverts, right?
yes.
So yeah, so I agree with that part here. So tell us, where are some of the challenges, because you yourself spend a lot of time leading teams.
Yeah,
What made you successful in those roles? Would you like to start there, or do you have something else where you feel
I'm
that
good.
we?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can start there, Rajiv. So, first of all, it took me a year when I became a leader to understand it's not about me, it's about them. So, right. So, I think that shifted. So, I started paying attention to how my team is, what lights them up, what do they struggle with, what is challenging for them, what are the aspirations, right? So, I developed a keen sense of observation, and
Right.
that's what did the trick for me. Because when I met them 101, they were really surprised at the number of details that I can tell about them without them having to say anything.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
like a person is very good at evening person, he starts working at 4 p.m. with all the enthu when everybody's leaving the office, right? So it can be a small thing, but that kind of changed the way that my team started looking at me, because they understood that I care enough, even though I am not a very vocal person in terms of going and speaking to them for hours, right? So
Right.
observation is one, and also keen interest in helping them grow.
Right.
That's the second part, right? So with all the observation, what do you do, right? So it's something has to happen with them, right? So channelizing your strength of listening, observation, reflection, to kind
Right.
of create a career path for them. That's what uh, I know. That's what changed the perception that introvert cannot lead. And when I scaled my teams to 125, I could still do it even though I was an introvert, because I did not have any inhibition, or or I was not shy, because I knew how to grow people.
Right. Right.
Right,
Right.
so that kind of tilted for me. Yeah, the initial days was a struggle. What do I tell them, what shouldn't, because I need preparation for really speaking sense.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't just like that speak. I need to make sense internally, than speak to them, right? So I had to really spend some time in going through what am I doing as a leader, and
Right.
then kind of adapting it to the person who has turned up before me.
So
So
I see two things here. One is like as an introvert, as an introvert, we tend to go inside to look for answers. Am I
yes,
right? So we
yes,
reflect a lot more. So when
yes,
we go and trying to observe our own behaviors, that gives us an opportunity to look at designing our behavior or designing our response or communication. That is one thing. And the
yes,
second thing you said was that because uh, you that as introverts we don't talk, we observe a lot more,
yeah,
we listen a lot more, we focus a
yes,
lot more on the other people, right?
yes,
That gives you a sense of empathy,
yes,
right? That you have that empathy and you can design your communication which is focusing a lot more on the other person, which I think is very important for us to
yeah,
kind of lead other people. Brilliant.
yes,
In fact, and why is it so important right now? I'm actually thinking of this Salim Ismail, who has written the book Exponential Organizations, and he talks a lot about how organizations are scaling up fast. One thing that he mentioned in one of his talks was that slowly over a period of time, the society and the workplace, they are shifting more from a male energy to female energy. Male energy is all about control, all about driving, all about direction and other things. But at the same time, now it's more about letting go, more about abundance, more about the other person. If you recall, a couple of weeks back, we were talking to Utkarsh also about,
yes,
kind of leader as a coach. And in that
yeah,
also, we talked about that in today's environment, when there's so much happening, not every leader knows all the answers. We need to be a little bit more in the listening mode, more to be, kind of empathetic about. So
yeah,
all these things seems to be coming together for me, that being an introvert can be a plus point for us, right?
yeah. It is. It is. I've noticed other introverts, and what I am surprised at is the number of hobbies they have, and the
Right,
depth at each hobby that they have, their
right.
creative pursuits,
Hmm.
their knowledge about different things, the depth and the intensity with which they can go on a particular topic. Right. Uh,
Sure.
it's like it's amazing, right? So I think it's about taking that strength and leveraging it while you are a leader. And if you manage to do it, you will be a very good one.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Wonderful. So I'm looking at my notes, and uh, first of all, even before we can start to look at what would be some of the best practices for individuals, and we probably might want to talk about institutions, what they can do to support
Yeah.
that. But if what is it that holds people back? I mean, introverts, even if I don't know that I'm an introvert, or even if I know that I'm an introvert, what is it that holds back? How can we help them release that energy and say, hey, this is okay for me to be an introvert? Because that would be the first step for us to start getting, kind of better in our own way of leading. Is that correct?
Yes, yes,
Does that?
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's the playbook. It's the playbook.
Yeah.
If we
Hmm.
try to measure ourselves with the playbook of an extrovert, we are just definitely going to fall short, right?
Uh,
So you'll have to figure out how, as an introvert, you can be a great leader rather than copying what an extrovert is doing. Probably they're leveraging their strength of being open, talkative, great in the company of people, can motivate with charisma. That is their strength, right? But these
hmm.
are not our strengths as an introvert, right? So we cannot play by that book and then become great leaders. So we play by our own strengths, which is
Right.
much more about going inwards, reflection, observation, leading with empathy, being vulnerable, right? So that's pretty much where I would say form your own playbook. Look at your strengths and create a leadership version that works for you in an authentic way. That can help you be a great leader rather than comparing yourself with an extrovert.
Right, right. Brilliant point. Once again, I'll quote Susan Cain, and she
Yes,
talks about that, our organizations and even our universities and institutions, they are designed so that we do group work,
yes,
group think, okay, which may not be conducive for an introvert, because
yeah,
they would want to reflect and be on their own for some time and the others. And one of the people who was interviewed by her said that it is hard work. It's exhausting to be around with people. And
Yes.
it doesn't kind of make me feel welcome into that group of people, that I need my own time to do that. So instead of trying to be a great leader by trying to be somebody who I'm not,
Yes.
it's much better that know that this is who you are, and be comfortable with that there is a way that you can lead. You don't have to literally copy somebody else or an extroverted person
Yeah.
uh, to come across as a better leader. So rather than trying to come across as a better leader, try to be authentic and become that better leader with whatever that you have got.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But what about the perceptions that people have found? I mean, is it important, or is it necessary for us to actively works towards managing those perceptions that people have about introverts, or how would you manage that in the short term?
Okay, so there are a few quick hacks. It's not so difficult even for an introvert to do it. So an introvert is an extrovert with 1%. Right.
Let me absorb that. Introvert is an extrovert.
1%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So whatever you are, if you can present yourself in a way that makes sense to one person, you can start there. So instead of taking 5 odd people in a group, draining your energy or their energy, you could possibly start one at a time. And once you're comfortable, one at a time.
Changing minds one at a time. Is that correct?
One at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, one at a time. If you manage to do that, then you can probably bring in 5, but reduce the time duration of that meeting, because then your battery is not totally drained, that you start hating that meeting, but you're still there in front of 5 different people. You are still listening, you're still reflecting, but you can
Right.
still manage for that time. So you have enough time to go back and recharge your battery. It's a simple hack, right? Right.
Brilliant.
So, right. 3, what are the measures that you will judge a great leader for? Right. So, I think it's very important to talk to your boss that you will meet what the KPI is, and the method should be yours. As long as it's unethical, or as long as it's not, something that you shouldn't be doing. I think any person at a leadership level should be able to get that leeway, that the method is mine, but I'll get your KPIs.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
most of the
So,
progressive organizations, they are moving in that direction. I mean, when you're
yes.
using OKRs and all that, it's okay. It's just the North Star. It's the objective that needs to be,
Yes.
and you are free to choose yours, right?
Yes, you can choose yours and then build over it. And then, so I think the first thing is to reframe that it's a preference and not a problem. So if you think it's a problem to be solved, you just work on your weakness one after, like how we do in school. This is the weak subject, just put your attention on it and get it over with, right? So if that's the thought process, we'll be spending energy on the weakness, which probably will not help us shine, but rather I think we would be better off spending time on something that can actually make us shine with our strengths. So that's the change that needs to happen.
Correct. Again, I mean, I seem to be, because my source of reference right now is only Susan Cain and what I
Yes.
had read recently. So she talks about this continuum of nature and nurture.
Yes.
So by nature, we are introverts, but there are
Yeah.
things that we can nurture in our own behaviors
Yeah.
to overcome some of those, social interactions that we do,
Yeah.
which can make us a little bit more effective. And I draw this analogy where we talk. I mean, somebody had mentioned and created this analogy saying that all of us cannot be Michael Schumacher when it comes to driving, but we can still be good enough driver to drive from workplace to home and home to workplace. Correct?
Yes.
So I relate to that nurture part of it with that driving skills, good enough driving skills for us to be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Interestingly, Rajiv, before the 1900s, it was much more about character development. It was
Yes.
not about personality development.
Yes.
So
Yes.
introversion and extroversion is personality development. As long as you have developed your character and your capability, which are core to what leadership stands for,
Yeah.
then the personality preferences can be managed if you are living in an environment where extroversion is the only way to be.
Yes.
It can be managed. A personality is like, even how our dress sense or how we appear, how we groom, it can be changed.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. But what the character and the capability part, which is the hardcore of what the leader is, that's where the effort should go into.
correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm again thinking in terms of uh, authenticity. We talk a lot about presence and the need for you to be authentic. And
Yeah.
what for example of these TikTokers or the YouTube videos, you have such diversity of talent and sometimes lack of talent, and you people still watch those videos by the millions just because they find them to be authentic, right? I mean, if you look at the content, sometimes the content is not there, but maybe it's just I'm missing something or whatever, but there are millions of followers for those people, and the only thing that I could see was that authenticity of people draws them, kind of.
Yes.
So that's very, very important for us to be able to do that. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. The relatability part, I think one of the areas that an introvert needs to pay conscious attention is, if you are not the one supplying the information, then people start guessing who you are.
Right.
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 So
Right.
she doesn't talk, so she should be this. She's angry, she is this. Right. So there is labeling and branding around if you remain silent.
Okay.
Right. So a better way is actually to let people know who you are or what you stand for in a
Right.
way that's comfortable to you. So
To
you
you.
can, yeah, you consciously say who you are in
Yeah.
any format that is okay by you, right? So not too much information, not revealing secrets. You don't have to tell your Ram Kahani, but at least tell two or three things that will look good to you, the values that you stand for, or the hobbies that you have, so that people can start relating to you as the first step.
Right. So
So
a little, yeah, that can be a little effort for you to manage that perception. But as long as it is aligned with who you are, then
yeah.
it can be managed. Is that what?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
Really.
my workspace used to be filled with a lot of quotes. Right. So anybody who comes to see me will, even if I am not the one talking too much, will at least see the quotes. Right. So, right. What does success mean? To laugh often and, be in the company of critics and grow at least one plant and make a difference to the world. This is what I stand for. Right. So there is stuck on my board. Right. So there's something about me that I am revealing, even though I don't talk any much. Right. So you could have a memorabilia, you can have souvenir or something that makes people know who you are.
Yeah. So communicate even non-verbally or in your actions or according to, I mean, creating that, what do you call them? The triggers or the environments which communicates to people the kind of person that you are.
Yes.
We can identify so much about a person by how they, design their environment around them.
Yes. Yes.
So that brings me to the next question. According to Susan Cain's research, almost one third to half the global population is, kind of tagged as introverts.
Yes.
Am I right?
And it
yet,
increases if it's a tech.
yes,
If it's a
exactly.
tech organization. We did some work with a leading semiconductor organization. About 70 to 80% of the people that we coached are introverts.
Introverts, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, and yet, most of the organizations, they are designed to be conducive for extroverts. Most of the self-help literature which is available, that talks more in terms of how an extrovert would become like a successful leader
Yes.
or whatever. I feel that in today's times, when we are talking about diversity and inclusiveness, there is a need for us to seriously look at including this introvert, kind of base, to be to be more inclusive about these introverted people who are there in the organizations. What do you think are some of the initiatives that organizations can take to become consciously aware or consciously design the organizations for introverted leaders?
Diversity of thought. I think that's the first thing that people should look for, because an introvert's way of making sense of the world is very different from how an extrovert would do. Not that the extrovert is bad, but it's different, right? So in meetings, for example, in team meetings, if there's somebody who is silent, maybe you can You can after an introvert would have trouble speaking in the first 5 minutes of the meeting, but after 15 minutes he or she would be more than happy to share what they think. So on the top of your mind, what do you think? If you ask a question, they will be much more willing to offer what they have been thinking so far, right? So being inclusive of people who reflect and think and not think with their feet, I think
Right.
that's the first place to start. Two, an introvert can produce a lot of creative output if you give them time, right? So if you are wanting to do something very different, then an introvert is a great bet if you give them time instead of asking them every 2 hours whether it's done. Right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's another, right? So the third, I believe, is to not have a playbook of one playbook of how a leader should be in an organization, and allowing different people with different styles to flourish. So that will actually bring a lot of variety to the team in being led, and
Right.
that makes them a lot adaptable. So if everybody is an extroverted leader, then the team is forced to be extroverted and build their extroverted capabilities, right? So having different styles of leadership is one thing that I feel
So,
organizations can have more.
yeah, absolutely right. In fact, that again takes me back when I used to do some facilitation work with workshops. One of the things that I realized was that it is not necessary that those people who are quiet, that they are not interested in what we are doing, or that
Yeah.
they don't have an opinion to talk about. And what I noticed was that when I mentioned this consciously in the sessions, that I recognize that there are different learning styles in the room. And so if you feel comfortable staying quiet and talking only when you feel comfortable about it, it's perfectly all right. There's no pressure for
Wonderful.
you to do that.
Yeah.
And that always brought about people to relax and say, hey, it's okay for me to just stay quiet, and I'm not going to be forced to ask and talk. And that would bring out a lot more from them. And sometimes when you have done multiple days workshops, people tend to open up a little towards the end of first day or the next day when they've had more time to think about it.
But I've been privileged to have a lot of extroverted bosses
Right.
who actually made the space for introverts,
Right.
who used to actually go out of their way to encourage participation from introverts, right?
Right.
So even if you it's a small gesture, but it'll mean a lot to the introvert.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Brilliant. So I see that we are coming towards the close of the session. What I would like to hear from you now is, can we give some inputs to our, viewers on starting to create a playbook for introverts? What are some of the things, what are some of the strengths that the introverts can leverage to start, uh, uh, becoming more effective or be themselves? And at this moment, I can see a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
How does one deal with an introvert boss? Okay, so there are two things for you to answer now. Where they start with the playbook, and the second is how do we deal with an introverted boss?
Okay. Playbook. The first thing is to know yourself, know what your strengths are, what stretch you can do in terms of being more communicative. What are your values? What do you really stand for? What are you willing to lend your voice for? For example, if something is in an introverted passion area, you can see them light up and be somebody else in that 2-3 minutes, right?
Right.
So
And suddenly
pick
I
your
turn an
passion.
extrovert.
Right. So 95% of the people guess that I'm an extrovert,
Mm,
right? They never manage to notice that I could be an introvert, right? So you can actually turn your passion to help you talk about yourself, because an introvert is much more comfortable talking about ideas and thoughts and hobbies and
right.
creativity and stuff rather than themselves, right? So find something you like to talk about, right?
Brilliant.
And share 3 things that people would understand who you are, right? So
Mm,
anything that appeals to you, anything that bothers you, a difference that you want to create in the world, a cause you stand for,
right.
right? And do a little bit more self disclosure instead of making people guess who you are, right?
Right.
And
Right.
introverts, many introverts, at least from my experience, are good in writing. So if
Okay. Yes.
speaking is not your thing, do write. Write blogs, write on LinkedIn, write anywhere in your intranet. Do the writing piece, because it's asynchronous and it'll give you the comfort feel of still sharing, but it's not too intrusive, right? So use
Wow.
writing as a medium.
Hmm. This is brilliant. So let me just recap it again. You said that find what is your passion or purpose or mission,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And again, it is in line with today what we are talking about, helping employees find the purpose. So
yes,
if it's purpose driven, then you are passionate, and then it comes out easily. You're not too conscious of not speaking up.
yeah,
Second is that reveal a lot more about yourself. So if people know what sort of should I use the word personality here? Yeah, then
yeah,
what sort of, yeah, what is your overall personality, and how do you communicate? How do you like to connect? Then it will
yeah,
be easier for people to accept the way that you are.
yeah,
Am I
yes,
right?
that's
Yeah.
great.
And the third thing is that communication does not necessarily have to be a factor of being able to speak well.
Yes,
If you don't want to speak up in public or whatever it is, there are other channels of communication which are available, and you must make uh, use of those channels to communicate effectively.
yeah.
Okay, good. So let me ask you this question once again, which is coming from one of our viewers. How does one deal with the introverted boss?
Okay, so all you need to know is when is his energy going up and when it's down. Just observe, right? So when the energy is down, basically his battery is he or she his battery is draining, right? So if you're going to go and talk about your most creative idea, it's not going to fly then. Right, so notice the energy, ask them when they would like to look at things. They
Yeah.
will be much more forthcoming to say, to tell you when they would like to talk to you. For example,
Hmm.
I had a board do not disturb behind my laptop cover for from 2 to 3, and my
Okay.
entire team knows that I am not going to speak 2 to 3 because it's my heads down work. I cannot survive without 2 to 3. So
Right.
I am like almost literally getting inside my laptop staring at it. So they know 2 to 3, they cannot get anything done from me. So they plan their work accordingly. It's much better asking your boss when would they like to discuss it, and they'll definitely give you time. And if preferably 101, that might click for you much better than in a group, because then they'll have to think about too many others to actually give you an answer. So
Good. I think
that's,
I
yeah,
think this can be included in managing up. How do you manage up, right? And
yeah.
so knowing, so first of all, knowing that your boss is an introverted personality.
It's a great
Second
step.
is, huh? That's
That's a
the first
great
step.
first step. Yeah.
Okay. So second thing is for you to recognize, or at least ask them, make your communication much more deliberate and intentional by asking them when is a good time for you to connect, and preferably more one-on-one. Is that
Yeah.
clear? So I
Yes.
hope Sitesh gets his answer from this. And thank you very much for asking that question. And thank you very much, Priya, for enlightening us. I'm not sure. I mean, I know this is not the all. I think it's just a small beginning of understanding how to work with introverted leaders, and how can introverted leaders become more effective in their interactions and in their leadership. So thank you once again. And I'm
Thank you,
sure we'll
Rajat.
find some other day for us to dig a little deeper into this one. So thanks a
Yes.
lot
Thank
for
you so
coming.
much. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye. And so, thanks a lot, viewers, for this another interaction. So, if you have any questions, and if you would like to connect with Priya, or to have any other questions answered, please put them up in this chat box here, and we will certainly revert to you on this. Priya will definitely come back to you on this one. So, until the next time, until the next episode, bye bye, and have a good day. Bye bye.